Hello, hello, and greetings to everyone from coast to coast. Good afternoon and good evening. I am so excited to be here with you all for another virtual Cafecito coordinated by EcoMadres and Moms Clean Air Force. We have some amazing panelists with us today. My name is Karina Martinez, and I am streaming from Los Angeles today. And thanks for joining us. So we are here to talk about the Biden administration's first moves to prioritize climate action and public health, something that we've all been desperately hoping for some change and action. So I'm excited to be here with you today. Me derrito de la emoción. Saludos a todos aquí. Soy emocionada de estar aquí otra vez con ustedes. De veras que me hacía mucha falta estar con EcoMadres, Moms Clean Air Force y aquí nuestros panelistas. So I want to introduce a little bit about our panelists here before we move forward. I'm going to start with Cinthia. Cinthia is Moms Clean Air Force Nevada organizer and the co-lead of the EcoMadres program. She has a great history of working to take on environmental action in her home state. And I will let her share where she's streaming from today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. I'm live from Las Vegas.
Awesome. And we're all excited to go back one day. And next we have Esther Sosa. She's a member of the Environmental Defense Fund's Political Affairs team. And she's been working with us to build partnerships and really bridge the gap between social justice organizations and advance legislation too, as well. Esther, where are you joining us from?
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. I am tuning in from New York City, where we are currently experiencing a snowstorm.
Well, it looks warm from your background, so we'll just pretend for now. And next we have Nicole. Nicole Randall is the Director of Strategic and Corporate Partnerships from an award-winning strategic comms and she's an award-winning professional, essentially, with over 15 years of experience. Thank you, Nicole, for being with us. Where are you joining us from?
Hi, Karina. Thank you. I'm here in Tucson, Arizona.
Ooh, awesome. Yeah, we've seen the desert and the snow over there a little bit right now, so that's pretty cool. And finally, we're bringing to you in representation of the fathers out there, Felipe Benitez, who is the Executive Director and founder of Corazon Latino. Felipe, bienvenido. ¿De dónde estás ahorita?
Estoy ahorita en West Virginia y tenemos ya un pie de nieve y les voy a enseñar, así que rápidamente, para que vean. ¿Se ve?
Wow.
So we're coast to coast.
Coast to coast. I know. I wish, I know everyone wishes when you're in California, you want a little bit of snow when you're, so hopefully we'll be able to pick up with our travels at some point soon. But I want to get back to really the focus of our conversation right now. We're going to be talking about the environment, Latinos, and we're excited and hopeful for this new administration, but we know that we have a lot of work to do regardless of who's in charge. So I'm going to start with Cinthia. Can you tell us a little bit about why issues of poor air quality and climate change impacts are important to the Latino community?
Hi, yes, Karina. Issues of air quality are important to the Latino community because it affects us, it affects our health. Latino children are 60% more at risk of having asthma attacks due to bad air quality days. And also 68% of us Latinos live in areas where we do not meet the federal air quality standards. I'm in Las Vegas, and last year, the American Lung Association State of the State report ranked Las Vegas number 9 in the entire country when it came to smog pollution. And the previous year, we were number 13, and I'm just curious to see when they release the report for 2021, if we've gone up or if we have improved our air quality. But just based on the wildfires from our neighboring state of California, we had a lot of really bad air quality days. I know my son was having issues breathing. He was having allergy issues as well. And also Latinos tend to live closer to the freeways or where there's a lot more traffic. I live close to downtown Las Vegas, so we're more central in the valley. And there's an app that I use to see our air quality, and I'll monitor it from time to time, especially when it says that there's it's a bad air quality day for my area. And then I input a friend of mine's address. She lives in the Green Valley area over here in Henderson, which is a much more affluent area than where I'm at. And it says good air quality day, but you know, we live in the same city, but we are affected differently with the bad air quality that we have in our city. But also our neighborhoods tend to be the places where there's more industrial areas. Most recently, I was reading an article from a neighborhood in Chicago. They have banded together a group of neighbors to fight a metal scrap factory from being built in their community. And they decided to band together and join this fight because this factory at first was proposed in a more affluent area, but the permit wasn't approved, and they were like, oh, let's just build it in a neighborhood that's predominantly Latino and Black. And that tends to happen in our communities a lot, is that we tend to get the short end of the stick where we have more industries coming into our communities that tend to pollute our air. And at the end of the day, they affect our health and they affect our children's health as well.
Yes, those are really important factors to take into consideration, that not only do we have natural disasters that impact our air quality, but we also have just industrial pollution and other types of pollution that come with the types of cities we might live in that exacerbate the air quality problems that we have. And I think that's a really great recommendation, what you mentioned about the, checking your air quality index. That's really, really helpful, especially for someone who might have asthma or who might have other sort of breathing problems. And also just to get to, be more aware. I love what you said, that you're comparing it to people in other neighborhoods, and we really all deserve the same, good, high quality air. So great recommendation there. You can, anyone who's watching can just Google air quality index, and it'll explain to you the ranges and the numbers and what it means for you when you're outside. And that was really important, especially in California when we had the wildfires. Sometimes you can't see how badly polluted the air is, but with these monitors, you'll be able to get a little bit more information. So thank you, Cindy, for setting the tone really and giving us a little bit of context for why it's important for Latinos to be a little bit more aware of this and also more involved. So we want to really stress that point too. On the policy end, Esther, President Biden signed a slew of executive orders. He referred to it as, when he did this, he referred to it as Climate Day. And boy, were we excited about that. I got a lot of them, party emojis, just excited emojis all over the time, how we're communicating right now. What actions did the president take, and how could these actions really benefit Latino communities across the country?
Thank you, Karina. And Cindy, as Cindy so beautifully explained, we are only as healthy as our environment. Our families are only as healthy as our environment. So that's why what happened on Wednesday is huge for our communities. And we are so excited because it's like night and day from a couple of days ago, the previous administration to this new administration. It is one of the strongest climate policies in place in US history that we've seen any president take. And as we know, the previous administration, it did a couple of things, but as we know, the previous administration was very successful at taking down regulations or environmental regulations that have an impact on the health of our communities. And what Biden is saying is that those regulations were in place for a reason, and we shouldn't take a step backward. So what he did is that he's bringing them back. So we're getting back from a negative bank account to a zero bank account, right? We're bringing them back, but we are also doing a couple of other things, right? We are also, he also pledged to make sure that racial justice and communities are at the center of how we are thinking about development and investment in our communities. He thinks that he wants to create a government jobs program that's intended to put people back to restoring waters, to restoring forests, so giving people jobs. And then the other part that's really exciting is the money piece. It's called Justice 40 Initiative, and what it does is that it wants to deliver 40% of overall benefits of all federal investment to our communities. So we would be deciding where we want those funds to go. What kind of projects do we want to invest in that we think are necessary for our communities, right? Whether it be solar, creating energy, community energy projects, right? Those are really up to us for us to decide. And it's a really strong indicator of him making a clear statement that in 21st century America, we shouldn't have to choose between a healthy environment and jobs, right? That's no longer something that we should be thinking about it in that way. So we're very excited. We're very excited about everything that is happening now, because it's a different starting point where we are not pitting our jobs and our environment together. But we're saying that we need both.
That's really fascinating, is to have that different starting point, but also when we think about it, we haven't had a starting point, especially in these last 4 years, where someone told us that our community voice matters too. So that to me is, like one of the starkest differences here, and saying we have, and just even acknowledging the work that community activists have been engaging in, that moms have been engaging in, dads, and people who stand alongside us when we take on environmental issues too, is that they're saying, hey, we're recognizing the work that you're doing, and we recognize the value of community input. So this is really cool. Let's talk a little bit more about how Justice 40 could work. What kind of investments do you think would be helpful to Latino communities? That's something that we should probably explore. And then how should they be engaged to ensure investments are made in an equitable way and with input from the communities that need the most investment and support?
Who do you want to?
Felipe, I saw your eyes jumping.
Okay, so
Feel free.
All righty. So, well, it is as Esther beautifully put, it is a first step, a step coming back, not even, well, it is in the right direction, but it's just coming back to where we should have been. And the important thing is that it sends a signal, but by no means it's suddenly signing it and then we're done. No, it's just the starting point. And now it becomes the interesting part of how do we make that signals or how do we make those into actionable items. ¿Cómo le hacemos para que esta firma, esta dirección que está dando la administración se convierta en acciones tangibles para nuestra sociedad? And it can be as simple as a transition to electric fleets. Like, I know that one of the things that the Biden administration mentioned, that they will shift the federal fleet, or at least they try to shift the federal fleet into electric. But that also can go into school buses, into public transportation. I know it's complex, and each community has its own characteristics, but that's a step that we want to take. And that means that the public transportation, the buses that our kids are taking them to school, once we're fully reopened, they will be producing less pollution. They will be helping towards our goals, both reducing air pollution, but also reducing carbon emissions. So it's you, and at the same time, as Cindy mentioned, they're helping our communities, making our air healthier. But those decisions, those actions do not come by themselves. We need to push for them. We need to talk to our elected officials. Now, it's going to be legislation that goes to Congress, and they need to allocate money to make these things happen, to get those investments, create those jobs in a local level. Well, if the city can make a decision to change infrastructure or provide incentives, like at the end of the day, we're going to act if we have incentives. If putting solar panels or getting a green car, or not a green car, well, a green car will be nice, but an electric car that is green, which will be cool. I'm getting an orange car right now, so when I'm thinking about cars. So make us be more like, hey, yeah, that makes sense. It's not only a cool car, it saves money, it's cheaper than than other options, and I'm actually helping my madre tierra, and I'm helping protect the environment. So it needs to do both. And what Esther said, that we don't have to decide between jobs and economic development and protecting our madre tierra. Well, it has to come to the down to the level where I can make a decision where the next car or the electric bill or any decisions that we're making are affecting, even as a consumer, that it is better because it makes sense. And we have the technology, we have the resources, the money's out there, and now we have the political will. So we need to make this happen. Y bueno, las decisiones que estamos tomando y las decisiones que se tomen a nivel local, a nivel ciudad, en el Congreso son muy importantes, y la manera de que nosotros podemos contribuir a que esto suceda es levantando la voz, es involucrándonos en estas decisiones. Como habitantes de este país tenemos el derecho y la obligación de tomar esas decisiones. Así que esas medidas se puede ver desde autobuses eléctricos, autos eléctricos o guaguas, dependiendo cómo lo veamos, guagua, autobús, bus. Todas estas oportunidades que nos da el poder tener productos, vehículos, elementos en nuestra vida diaria que sean amigables con nuestra madre tierra, pero a la vez que nos sean, que hagan sentido en nuestros bolsillos. And I'm going to stop there because I know Nicole has some cool stuff to talk about too.
Ya, antes de que comience Nicole, nomás quiero decir algo, Felipe, me encantó lo que dijiste, es que no importa cuáles sean las prioridades exactamente de cada lugar, pero lo que importa es que las cosas no se hacen solas y que la gente se involucre, que presionen a sus líderes a tomar acción, sea cual sea, en lo que sea necesario, pues, pero que, como dijiste, es que alcen la voz, que tomen acción, que se involucren. Ok, y con eso se lo voy a pasar ahora sí a Nicole.
I think two of the things that I was most excited about with these executive orders. First, one of the goals is conserving at least 30% of our lands and oceans by 2030, and launching a process for stakeholder engagement from agricultural and forest landowners, tribes, territories, local officials, and others to identify strategies that will result in broad participation. And that's something that here in Tucson, I really am excited about how this can kind of go into practice, because you know, in the last year, we saw the driest year on record in history in Tucson. We also saw the second hottest year on record here in Tucson. And these increased temperatures are having such a massive impact on our community. We also suffered last year from horrific wildfires that burned just, I mean, it was literally at my street, and we had ash falling. It was shocking. And, you know, we're the only place in the world where the majestic saguaro cactus grows, and each cactus is like 150, 200 years old. They're incredible, and they're incredibly resilient up until recently, you know, and people that are conservationists here were in tears watching as these massive saguaros were exploding from the extreme heat from these fires, something that really hasn't happened before. And it's something that we all really just need to kind of pay attention to. One of the things that's happening here in Tucson Mayor Regina Romero had launched the Million Trees Initiative, which is the goal to plant 1 million trees by 2030. And this really is a commitment to making sure that there are green spaces in all communities, and especially for those frontline and low-income communities that are most impacted by climate change and extreme heat. And I think something to remember too, it's just important that we're not parachuting into neighborhoods trying to fix things, but that we are really engaging the communities where people are experiencing the worst impacts of climate change, and helping them to understand how their health is impacted, how their kids' health is impacted, and really bring them along in the process of protecting these spaces and planting more trees to help capture and some of that harmful carbon, and just making things a lot nicer for everyone. So I'm so relieved by these executive orders, and I'm just really looking forward to this new day and the good work that can now start to happen in earnest. And I'm so excited. There's lots of really great things. Oh, and then, the other thing too, I think that I was most encouraged by was the order calling for the establishment of a civilian climate corps initiative. And it's getting a whole new generation of Americans to work in conservation and restoring public lands and waters. So that's including things like reforestation, carbon sequestration, and in the agricultural sector. One of the programs I'm working on with some partners up in Phoenix is helping to get kids in high schools in Buckeye involved in learning about what conservation jobs are available. And this is something that, they don't even know necessarily what kind of careers could be open to them. And so it's bringing in mentors from the National Park Service, the Forest Service, to talk to these kids and help them understand how they can have an active role in conservation and protecting their environment, and that could be like a sustainable job path for them. So I'm really excited about programs like that are looking towards getting the next generation involved in protecting the planet.
Yeah, I feel like really that totally revitalized our concept of conservation, who's involved in conservation, especially when you're looking at younger generations and wanting to involve them from high school and even before then. That is amazing to me. So, we're not only looking at this as, I think in a few years ago, we were looking at conservation efforts and really seeing it as something very segmented to certain types of populations or certain demographics. And now we've really expanded what that means to involve every community, every generation, every age group. And so that is really incredible, but really it also, don't want to escape from the responsibility of it too. I think that we're expanding this so much more because we know that we can't do it without one another too. So yeah, those points are really, really great. Cindy, in Nevada, what would you say, especially like in your communities, what would be some of the priorities that people from your community would undertake or would want to see happen if something like the Justice 40?
Yes, one of the most important things in our community because of COVID, Nevada is one of the states that's been the hardest hit. And we have the highest unemployment in the entire country. We are now #1 when it comes to food insecurity for children. A lot of folks haven't returned to work since our governor shut down the casinos back in March. I personally have a couple of family members that have not been working since March, and so it's going to be an entire year. But we need to make sure that when we talk about the green economy and bringing these jobs, that we include the Latino community and that we are informing our community as to how they can be part of these new jobs and this new economy. Back in November, EDF and Latino Decisions did a poll, and 81% of Latino voters said it's very important to them that the United States make long-term investments to help jumpstart the economy by making clean energy jobs a priority, like wind and solar. And it's particularly important in Nevada because 82% of the Latinos that were surveyed said that this was important for them, that this new economy was important, and that they wanted our federal government and our state and local governments to make this a priority. And this is one of the ways that we can help bring back jobs to our community, especially the frontline communities are being hard hit and have lost their jobs, and possibly we don't even know if those jobs are going to be available when we do start opening back up, like in Nevada. There's a lot of casinos that are still not completely open, and there's a lot of people that, like my uncle and my cousin, that don't know if they're even going to have a job once the casinos where they work are fully operational.
Well, those are some, just additional stressors that are unimaginable. I think that we never anticipated something like this happening, but that's also why getting ahead of climate change and taking climate action now is so important. I know that in California, while we were in the middle of the pandemic, we had the wildfires over here, and it was just incredibly stressful for people who had to evacuate from their homes even. I don't know what the situations were with which people could afford to even pay right now their rent, their mortgage, and then they were having to evacuate in a pandemic, when they were forced to be at greater exposure, a greater risk to contracting this virus too. So I think that we're seeing that when we have multiple tragedies like this compound, we really rely on having at least our environment taken care of so that we can deal with all of these other stressors. So that's a really great point to mention right there too, that we're seeing stressors from all different angles right now. But the Latino community is still at the center of all of these put together. It's really, really wants to make you take action, for our community, para la gente que realmente está en necesidad ahorita y que lo estamos viendo muchísimo. Así que por lo mismo estoy tan agradecida con gente como ustedes que están tomando acción. Felipe, yo sé que estás emprendiendo con muchos proyectos ahorita, muchas ideas para cómo ayudar a los latinos y cómo revivir el concepto de la conservación y el cuidado del medio ambiente.
Así es, Karina, estamos justamente preparándonos de manera positiva, con que esperamos que bueno, podamos pronto volver a estar juntos, aunque sea todavía un poco separaditos, pero juntos ya con vacunas, que es bien importante, que nuestra comunidad, cuando tenga la oportunidad, cuando sea su turno, se vacunen, porque la única manera en que vamos a vencer a este virus es a través de que todos sigamos trabajando en conjunto y todos formemos parte de la solución. Y lo importante, como tú dices, es prepararnos. Los latinos, por naturaleza, por DNA, por nuestra educación, sabemos cómo cuidar el medio ambiente, cómo proteger a nuestra madre tierra. Así que nosotros podemos ser líderes y debemos ser líderes en esta protección. Y ahora, pues el presidente Biden y la vicepresidenta Harris, que se siente bien bonito decirlo, good trouble, en honor a Congressman Lewis, nos han dado ya ahora sí que la patadita para que vamos a trabajar, vamos a enseñar, vamos a demostrar estas acciones que estamos viendo y que vamos a comenzar a ver a todos niveles de gobierno federal, yo espero también a nivel estatal, que ya está sucediendo, y a nivel local, nos van a permitir ser parte de la solución, y no solo ser parte, sino liderar. Y organizaciones como EDF, como Corazon Latino, como el Sierra Club, como Conservation International, todas estas organizaciones están viendo hacia nosotros, y no solo los latinos, sino comunidades indígenas, afroamericanos, todos los que somos comunidades de color, que no somos blanquitos, que lideremos en esto, porque es nuestro momento de liderar. Nos están dando la oportunidad, no nos están dando la oportunidad, nos las hemos ganado. Exacto. Tenemos ahora la obligación, la responsabilidad de tomar acción e incrementar. Así que vienen muchas de lo que decía Nicole, desde plantar un árbol hasta tomar decisiones como apagar la luz, como más importante, alzar nuestra voz, sin importar, no importa el idioma que hablemos, no importa nuestro estatus migratorio, no importa, somos parte de este país, vivimos, tomamos la decisión, o nuestros padres o abuelos tomaron la decisión de hacer de este país nuestro país, y tenemos la gran obligación, la gran oportunidad y el derecho de ser parte de la toma de decisiones. Así que viene mucho, está pasando mucho en todos niveles, y esperen para el Día de la Tierra, en abril va a haber muchísimas oportunidades, y de ahí en adelante hay que tomar esta gran oportunidad y demostrar quiénes somos, demostrar nuestro amor a la Madre Tierra, y pues echarle ganas, no queda de otra.
Sí,
Sí,
hay
yo
que
creo que
poner este amor en acción, y para hacer eso, ¿cómo vamos a comenzar a concluir esta conversación que es it's the beginning of our a longer conversation, much more work. And for that, Felipe just said, to summarize what he said, we have to put our love into action, our love for the Mother Earth into action. So if you guys could each tell us all, how do we get involved? What advice would you give for getting involved or taking the first steps into taking action? And then we'll go from there.
Yo creo que puedo ir yo primero, Karen. Yo creo que lo que dice Felipe es un muy buen punto, de que la gran oportunidad que nos está dando esta administración es que está viendo a comunidades locales para que ofrezcan soluciones, ¿verdad? Entonces no tiene que ser una organización grande, nacional, internacional, pero una organización local que está trabajando en hacer proyectos de paneles solares, o está tratando de plantar un árbol, ¿verdad? Empieza muy local, y esos proyectos están viendo, organizaciones como EDF está viendo cómo podemos tomar ese modelo y replicarlo o mostrarlo a nivel nacional. Entonces yo creo que ese es el poder que traemos nosotros los latinos, porque nos importa nuestra familia, nos importa nuestra salud, nos importa el medio ambiente, ¿verdad? Y tenemos muchas ideas que traemos de donde venimos, de nuestros lugares nativos, y ahora podemos tener la oportunidad de expandir esos proyectos aquí en los Estados Unidos.
Exacto. Y Esther, para involucrarse con EDF o con algún proyecto que tengan EDF, ¿cómo se pueden involucrar?
Sí, EDF trabaja con varias organizaciones locales y nacionales. Tenemos nuestra página de portal, edf.org, donde hay diferentes proyectos que tienen que ver con el agua, con la contaminación del agua, que tienen que ver con la contaminación del aire, y estamos tratando de involucrarlos más con EcoMadres para poder traer actividades o discusiones que los latinos nos importen.
Okay, uniting forces. This is awesome. Nicole, how would you suggest that people get involved? How would you motivate someone, or where can they go to start taking action?
Oh, there's so many places. My background is as a journalist, so I would like to make a call to everyone to please stay informed, support local journalism, support local journalists by reading and subscribing to your local paper, so that they can continue to fund the research essentially that's happening in your community, so that you can stay informed. If you're a parent, or if you have children in your life, involve the kids. This is something that you can do as a family. I've taken my daughter to a couple of different tree plantings here in Arizona, and she loved it. We've done beach cleanups together with Surfrider when we lived in Hawaii. My husband's in the Air Force, and we were stationed in Hawaii, and I was really active with Surfrider when I lived there. it's something that starts as soon as they can walk, and you can speak to them about, oh, there's cigarette butts on the beach. Let's pick it up and put it in the bag and bring it to the right place and put it away. It's just involving children, I think, at every step, and talking to them about what's possible, why we care, what it means for them, in the future. And I think that, continuing to stay engaged in your local community, I think, as everybody has shared, find out, there's so many great activities that you can find out about on Facebook groups about, when things are happening. Obviously stay safe, during these crazy times, and wear masks when you're going out to do tree plantings in person, or, there's just so many different ways, even donating to local campaigns, $5, $10, skip a Starbucks one day and go, donate $5 to a local organization. There's just so many opportunities. And obviously with Corazon Latino, we're doing a lot of work, and we would love to invite you to find out more about us and join us in our activities. And just stay engaged, I think, is the most important thing. Don't get despondent. Sometimes the news can be really heavy and just we want to turn away. That's when you need to turn your attention and lean in and keep paying attention, and keep the pressure up on your local officials whenever you can, to make sure that they're acting in your best interest and in your family's best interest. And we do that with calls, with letters, with emails, and by staying engaged. That would be.
Yeah, I really want to underscore the point you made about supporting local journalism. It's right now with the pandemic, especially, we're seeing a lot of local outlets not being able to maintain their staff, and some of them even closing down. But we are now seeing and appreciating how much they actually did for local communities. I read that in some communities, for example, in Coachella, where they have a really poor air and water quality, that the local newspapers were the ones that were really giving voice to these issues. And they were the ones informing local community members that there even was an issue, that maybe they, couldn't rely on their drinking water. And so much other key information that was really coming from these local journalist sources. So thank you for bringing that up. It's something that hardly ever gets mentioned, but that is really critical right now. We're seeing it more and more as these outlets are struggling to stay afloat during this pandemic. So thank you, Nicole, especially for bringing up that point. So support local journalism, pay the $1 subscription. It really goes a long way. Cindy, how about you? How can people stay involved? What would you say? How would you encourage them to take action?
Yes, I would encourage people to take action by joining and volunteering for organizations like Moms Cleaner Force. You can find out more information on our website, momscleanerforce.org. We are a community of over 1 million moms and dads all over the country. But of course, we welcome more people, because the more folks that we have, the stronger our voice becomes. And what I would like to say to our community, por favor, no sientan que su historia no importa, que no pueda hablar con las personas que son parte del gobierno. No importa su estatus inmigratorio, es la responsabilidad de ellos escuchar a su comunidad y a las personas que votaron por ellos o no votaron por ellos. Ellos les gusta ver y escuchar de personas que están en su comunidad, en su distrito que ellos representan, porque muchas veces las personas que van y hablan con ellos son de compañías o son lobbies o tienen otros intereses, pero si uno va y les dice la historia personal, entonces eso hace mucha diferencia. Por eso no se sientan como que ustedes no tienen el poder, sí tienen el poder. Y por favor, les pido que se involucren con organizaciones como Moms Cleaner Force, Corazon Latino. Siempre bienvenimos a más personas aquí que sean parte de nuestra organización, porque cada persona tiene una historia muy diferente y su voz es importante.
Somos poderosos, así es. Y por fin, Felipe, si nos puedes también decir algunas palabras de motivación y cómo involucrarse.
I mean, Karina, that it wouldn't be a panel in that which I participate if I don't tell people to go hug a tree. And that's what I'm asking. It's important. It takes only 20 minutes to be in outdoors, be in nature, to get all the benefits from nature. And it's a reciprocity. If we take good care of Mother Earth is going to take good care of us. Así que I want to challenge everybody. You can do it. You can take 20 minutes of your busy day, and it doesn't have to be every day. It can be twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever you can. Spend 20 minutes and make sure that your kids spend 20 minutes outdoors, because that's what we need. The stronger we are, the healthier we are, we're going to be able to take care of our Madre Tierra. Y lo quiero decir en español. Es un reto que quiero pedirle a todos, que estemos 20 minutos al aire libre, 20 minutos en la naturaleza. Y no tiene que ser en un bosque, no tiene que ser en un lugar muy verde, sí, verde sí, pero no en un lugar como un parque, puede ser en un parque, puede ser en el árbol que está junto a tu casa, en cualquier lugar, incluso la plantita que tienes en casa, como la que tú tienes atrás, Karina. 20 minutos en la naturaleza nos van a hacer más fuertes, nos van a hacer más conectados con nuestra madre tierra. Y si nosotros cuidamos de nuestra madre tierra va a cuidar de nosotros.
Pues gracias. Yo antes de terminar este programa, para resumir, tuvimos un virtual cafecito para hablar sobre esta nueva administración y lo que están haciendo para priorizar climate action y public health. So this is a good starter conversation. We're getting people plugged in, getting people just the basics of what's going on and where we have an opportunity to take action. I want to just give a quick shout out to in the Central Valley CNC that's working on providing more green spaces for communities and more parks. So that's really cool. You can look them up. And also a shout out to Molly, who has coordinated the virtual Cafecito. She's not on right now with the camera, but thank you so much, Molly, for bringing us all together from across the country to have this first discussion on this. And everything is looking hopeful. We see a lot of people who are motivated. And I think that that's what we have to just really remember, is that these are opening opportunities, but we really have to keep the pressure up, keep the motivation up as well. As hard as these times are and uncertain as they are, it's really going to be up to us to move climate action forward, not only for our generation, but the ones after that. So thank you all. It was great to see you today. Wonderful discussion, and I hope to be able to be with you soon.
Gracias, Karina.